Ambassador Elias Grant paced nervously in the corridor of the Solara conference hall, the weight of the galaxy's expectations pressing down on his shoulders. The peace talks had begun with hope, an illusion that Earth might finally earn its place among the stars without conflict. As the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council, Grant understood the importance of the moment. But even he couldn't deny the simmering tension in the air. The galaxy's oldest and most powerful empires were at the table, factions that had negotiated, manipulated, and schemed for centuries. To them, humans were just an unpredictable newcomer, a minor player. Inside the Grand Hall, Earth's position was vulnerable. Despite humanity's technological leaps, they were still a young species, fresh from their last war with the Vecthar, a race known for their ruthless expansionism and barbaric tactics. The Triad, the supposed peacekeepers, were there too, their leadership always sitting on the fence, their true allegiances unclear. But it was the Vecthar who dominated the room. Their leader, Supreme General Karjok, stood tall and imposing, his golden-plated armor reflecting the dim lights. His people had never forgiven Earth's interference in their mining colonies. The Vecthar considered the human race a nuisance, one to be crushed if necessary. Grant stood before the delegation, attempting to keep his composure. The other diplomats, a mix of Arcturian intellectuals and Triad peacekeepers, sat silently as Karjok began his speech. Humanity's contribution to the peace process, Karjok sneered, his voice deep and calculating, has been minimal at best. You speak of unity, yet you expect to be granted what? A voice? The right to govern? Your presence here is a courtesy, not a privilege. Grant clenched his jaw, the sting of the insult barely contained. But he was prepared. This was a tactic the Vecthar had used in previous negotiations. Push, bully, and belittle until their opposition broke. Humanity's strength had always been in its resilience. This would be no different. We seek nothing but equality and mutual respect, Grant responded, his voice firm but measured. If the galaxy is truly interested in peace, then we must all have a seat at the table. It's time for the era of domination to end. Karjok laughed, the sound booming across the room. Respect? He echoed, his eyes narrowing. You overestimate your importance, human. The galaxy has thrived without your kind for millennia. What you fail to realize is that this equality you crave comes at a cost. The cost of resources, of control, the cost of the very foundations of power. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. It was clear that Karjok had no intention of compromising. The Triad representatives exchanged uneasy glances, their quiet murmurs a signal of the quiet turmoil behind their neutral facade. Grant didn't flinch. He knew the situation was spiraling out of control. He could sense it, an ancient game being played out with humanity caught in the middle. The peace talks, intended to forge a new era, were quickly devolving into a brutal power struggle. At that moment, Karjok made his move. He stood and slammed his fist onto the table, his voice a thunderous command. This meeting is over. The humans have no place here. The galaxy's future does not lie with you. A stunned silence fell over the room. Grant's heart pounded in his chest. The diplomatic facade had shattered. The galaxy was not ready for peace. It was ready for war. As the Vecthar delegates stormed out, Grant exchanged a brief, knowing glance with President Sarah Jensen, watching via hologram from Earth's command center. The message was clear. Peace was a dream. Retaliation would be the reality, and humanity would not wait for another empire to decide its fate. This continuation builds the tension and sets the stage for the impending conflict, establishing the challenges humanity faces as it tries to break free from the shadow of the more powerful galactic empires. The stage is now set for Earth to make its bold, retaliatory move. On Earth, the mood was somber, but a quiet determination rippled through the corridors of power. The collapse of the peace talks wasn't just a failure, it was a declaration that humanity's place in the galaxy would not be handed to them. If the galaxy wouldn't give Earth a seat at the table, then they would force the issue. In the sleek, sterile confines of the United Earth Council chamber, President Sarah Jensen's Voice cut through the rising murmur of dissent. She stood tall, unwavering, her eyes cold as the room fell silent. The diplomatic failure was hers to bear, but it was also her responsibility to act. And act she would. "We've tried diplomacy," Jensen said, her tone calm, but carrying the weight of finality. "Now we respond in kind." The room fell still as every eye in the chamber fixed on her. For months, Jensen had advocated for a strategy of patience, for Earth to bide its time and grow its influence on the galactic stage. But the Vecthar's blatant disrespect, combined with the Triad's cowardly neutrality, had shattered that approach. Earth had been humiliated in front of the entire galaxy, and now it was time for humanity to reclaim its dignity. General Marcus Kane, the grizzled leader of Earth's military, was the first to speak. He was a man of action, and his hands trembled, with barely contained excitement as he stood before the council. "We've been preparing for this moment for years. The Titan fleet is ready." The Titan fleet. A name whispered in the darkest corners of galactic intelligence. A fleet so powerful that it was barely believed to exist. It had been constructed in the shadow of humanity's greatest technological advances, built using a mix of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology. It was the result of years of research into weapons and energy systems that no other species had dreamed of. The fleet's ships were equipped with quantum reactors capable of harnessing and weaponizing the power of stars. Their weaponry was designed to bypass conventional shields and destroy entire fleets with pinpoint precision. Jensen nodded, her eyes locked on Kane's. "Activate the fleet. We go in hard. No half measures." The decision was made. Humanity would strike first. Across the globe, the activation of the Titan fleet sent ripples through every major military and intelligence center. Across Earth's vast networks, hidden signals triggered the fleet's launch sequence. The fleet's massive ships, once secret and dormant in the deep space shipyards, powered up and jumped to their pre-designated positions. Earth's military command began to move with a precision and swiftness that no one had expected. The first target was a Vecthar mining outpost on the planet Jaros, located in the outer rim. For months, the Vecthar had been extracting rare minerals, resources, essential for their war machine, and their supply lines were critical to their empire's operations. The attack was more than just a military operation, it was a message. The Titan fleet would deliver that message with unrelenting force. As the human ships slipped into Jaros's orbit, the Vecthar remained unaware, lulled into a false sense of security by the recent peace talks. It was only when the first barrage of quantum plasma cannons tore through the mining complex's defenses that the Vecthar understood the scale of their mistake. On the ground, the Vecthar forces scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The Titan fleet's drones, small yet deadly, swarmed like a horde of mechanical locusts, disabling communications, taking down defensive turrets, and crippling the outpost's power grid. Within hours, the Vecthar had lost control of their own territory. The humans had struck with surgical precision, their weapons designed not to overwhelm, but to completely neutralize the enemy in a way that left no room for counterattack. Alive. Broadcast from Earth's command center appeared across the galaxy, showing the devastation on Jaros. President Jensen's voice rang out over the images of burning structures and crumbling defenses. "This is the price of underestimating humanity. We do not seek your approval. We demand respect." The message was clear. Earth would no longer play the role of the weak, the underestimated. It was a shockwave that rippled through the galaxy, leaving everyone wondering what the humans would do next. But for Jensen, there was no turning back. The war had already begun. The galaxy would soon learn that the Earth had teeth and they were sharp. This continuation drives the plot forward with an intense and decisive moment of action, establishing Earth's retaliation as swift and devastating. The tension rises as humanity's technological edge becomes evident, leaving the galaxy reeling from the boldness of Earth's response. The aftermath of the attack on Jaros was felt across the galaxy. The Vecthar, once thought invincible due to their sheer size and brutality, were left reeling. The Triad, ever the peacemakers, issued immediate condemnation, decrying Earth's actions as reckless and an affront to galactic stability. But the reaction from the galaxy's other powers was far more complex. The Arcturians, regarded as the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, were particularly intrigued. Their long history of diplomatic isolation had kept them aloof from the galactic politics of war. Yet in the wake of the Vecthar's humbling defeat, their High Council convened in secret. There were murmurs among the Arcturian elite that humanity's sudden technological leap couldn't be ignored. While some saw this as a threat, others saw it as an opportunity to learn from a species that had, against all odds, created weapons and tactics that even the most sophisticated empires hadn't dreamed of. Meanwhile, the Vecthar were scrambling to regroup. They had underestimated Earth in every possible way, dismissing humanity as a species too fractured, too new to the galactic stage, to pose a serious threat. But the shocking efficiency of the Titan fleet's strike against Jaros had exposed the deepest flaw in their thinking. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were evolving, faster than anyone had anticipated. Back on Earth, the Titan fleet continued its silent war, its presence growing stronger as humanity's war machine quickly adapted. The same drone swarms that had decimated Jaros now patrolled key outposts along Earth's expanding perimeter, and the quantum reactors aboard each ship had been upgraded to create devastating new energy signatures. With every battle, the humans learned, refining their strategies, their technology, their tactics. They were a species on a warpath, but also one that learned with terrifying speed. The galaxy's response, however, was far from united. The Triad, despite their public disapproval of Earth's military tactics, saw the growing power of humanity as a double-edged sword. While they sought to distance themselves from the conflict, they also began to fear the consequences of a species that could outpace their peacekeeping efforts. The peacekeepers were no longer sure whether humanity represented a new hope for galactic order or the dawn of a new empire that could topple the balance of power. It was during one of these tense days that the first major shift came. The Arcturian fleet, composed of sleek, nearly indestructible ships, appeared on the edge of Earth's territorial space. Their arrival was not an attack, but a silent challenge. The Arcturian flagship, Stellar Sovereign, an imposing structure that stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, dropped out of hyperspace with an elegance that defied its size. The galaxy watched as the Arcturians made contact with Earth directly. Earth's homeworld. President Jensen stood before a vast crowd in the unified council chamber. The message was clear. Earth had become a power to be reckoned with. And now, the Arcturians wanted to talk. Humanity has proven itself, said Ambassador Talax, the Arcturian envoy, in a calm but heavy voice. What you have accomplished in so short a time is unprecedented. We are here not to threaten you, but to understand. You have unlocked something the rest of the galaxy thought beyond reach. How is this possible? Jensen's face betrayed no emotion. Behind her, the bright holographic screens flickered with live reports from Jaros, still smoldering from the attack. Our success is the product of necessity, she replied, her voice cool. We're not trying to conquer the galaxy, but we will protect what is ours. If that means using the technology we've developed to ensure our survival, then so be it. The Arcturian envoy nodded slowly. He had seen the humans' power firsthand, and there was something about their unyielding determination that resonated with him. He understood that humanity's strength was more than just military might. It was adaptability. Where others had relied on centuries-old strategies, humans had rewritten the rules of warfare. It is said that the galaxy's future is shaped by those who control the stars, Talax continued. But perhaps the future is shaped by those who innovate. Earth, it seems, has already done this. President Jensen's gaze sharpened, her words deliberate. The future will be shaped by those who are willing to fight for it. The galaxy can change, and we will be the ones to lead that change. As the Arcturian envoy departed, the implications of his visit were far from clear. But one thing was certain: Earth was no longer a minor power in the galaxy. The message had been sent. Humanity's innovations were more than a technological leap. They were a signal to the stars. Humanity was here, and they were not backing down. This continuation builds on humanity's surprising technological advances and introduces the Arcturian interaction as a pivotal moment in the story. It highlights humanity's potential not only as a force of military power, but as a catalyst for change, positioning them as a serious player on the galactic stage. In the weeks following the Arcturian envoy's visit, Earth's leadership found themselves on the edge of something unprecedented. The Arcturians, long considered a paragon of intellectual and technological superiority, had quietly extended an olive branch. What had once seemed like a mere diplomatic gesture, an inquiry into Earth's technological rise, had evolved into a far more intricate proposition. A private encrypted message arrived from the Arcturian High Council, requesting a meeting with President Sarah Jensen. The terms were simple. Earth was invited to join a new, unofficial alliance, an exchange of knowledge, technology, and military strategy, all in exchange for Earth's cooperation in a growing cosmic balance. While Jensen understood the subtleties, behind the offer, the undercurrent of suspicion was clear. Why now? Why had the Arcturians, who had remained aloof from the affairs of galactic politics for so long, suddenly chosen to align themselves with a fledgling species? Jensen convened an emergency session of the United Earth Council. General Marcus Kane was quick to voice his concerns. This could be a strategic move to bring us into the fold, to tie us closer to their interests. The Arcturians aren't known for sharing power, but there was something about the offer that felt different. Earth's military might have grown considerably, but their technological innovation still lagged behind the Arcturians. What if this wasn't just a political maneuver? What if this was a sign that the Arcturians had recognized something unique in humanity, a potential that was too dangerous to ignore? Perhaps we don't have the luxury of hesitation, President Jensen said, her gaze steady as she looked around the room. We are no longer in a position to be passive. If they truly wish to join forces, we have to be ready to leverage everything they offer. And so, an agreement was reached. Earth would accept the Arcturians' offer. But with every passing day, the question lingered in the back of Jensen's mind. What was the Arcturian High Council not telling them? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. It was a quiet afternoon when the Arcturian delegation arrived on Earth's capital. Their fleet, the Stellar Sovereign included, docked in Earth's orbit, and a vast convoy of scientific and military advisors descended to the planet's surface. Their technology was dazzling. Holographic data streams, and AI-driven machines that could predict planetary movements with precise accuracy. Their gift to humanity was no small token. Blueprints for quantum-powered reactors, weapons capable of disabling entire fleets, and nanomaterial armor that was nearly indestructible. At the meeting, Ambassador Talax handed Jensen a sleek, crystalline device, the Arcturian key. This, Talax explained, is a repository of our deepest knowledge. It contains the full history of our civilization, all our advancements, and the energy systems we have developed. It also holds something unique. Jensen's fingers hovered over the device, her curiosity piqued. What do you mean, unique? Talax's expression darkened for a moment, his alien eyes narrowing. This device holds the key to an energy source we discovered on a world, far beyond the reach of your maps. A power greater than anything we have ever shared. It is not just a weapon, it is an evolution. Jensen took the device cautiously. The room was silent, the weight of the moment pressing down. She understood. Now this wasn't merely an alliance, it was a gift that could elevate humanity to unimaginable heights. The potential to harness a new form of energy, one that could fuel the most advanced ships, power entire civilizations, and perhaps even alter the very fabric of reality, was in her hands. But there was something off about the way Talax spoke, something in his eyes that suggested this gift came with a hidden cost. He wasn't just offering a shortcut to power. He was giving humanity a tool that could change the course of the galaxy forever. There is one condition, Talax said, his voice low. We need your cooperation, not just in scientific endeavors, But in the upcoming crisis we foresee, the galaxy is changing, and we believe your species will be the one to shape its future. But you must act swiftly. The time to decide is now. Jensen studied him for a long moment, then made her decision. We will take the knowledge you offer, but know this. Humanity's path is our own. We'll shape our future on our terms. As the Arcturian delegation departed, Jensen couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was no longer merely a part of the galaxy. It was becoming a central force in shaping its fate. The Arcturians had given humanity the means to ascend, but in doing so, they had unwittingly put the power to change the galaxy into the hands of a species that had just begun to learn how to use it. And with this newfound strength, Earth would soon show the galaxy that it was no longer a passive player in this interstellar game. It would be the one making the rules. This continuation deepens the intrigue around the Arcturian offer, introducing powerful new technology and the potential for both alliance and manipulation. It raises the stakes by revealing that humanity now holds something much more significant, a power that could alter the course of the galaxy, while also hinting at darker motivations behind the Arcturians' gift. Weeks passed in a tense quiet, the calm before the storm. On the surface, Earth appeared to be basking in the glow of its new alliance with the Arcturians. The sharing of technology and knowledge accelerated humanity's rise on the galactic stage. Quantum reactors powered Earth's cities, and the energy generated by the new power sources brought forth a new era of prosperity. The Titan fleet grew ever more formidable, incorporating advanced Arcturian technologies, making it nearly unstoppable. But behind closed doors, something darker was brewing. President Jensen began to feel a weight pressing on her that no victory or new alliance could lift. The Arcturian key had unlocked more than just technological advancements. It had unlocked a truth she wasn't prepared for. The power source they had provided wasn't just a breakthrough in energy, it was an ancient, forbidden technology, a tool of unimaginable force. Humanity now had the potential to reshape reality itself, and Jensen knew that this kind of power couldn't go unchecked. Despite the promise of cooperation, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Arcturians had ulterior motives. They had been too eager to share their knowledge, too quick to place humanity at the center of a galactic realignment. The gift was too perfect, too convenient. And Talax's words echoed in her mind. The galaxy is changing, and we believe your species will be the one to shape its future. But which future? A future of cooperation, or one where humanity was forced to play the part of a pawn in someone else's game? Jensen wasn't the only one asking these questions. General Marcus Kane, ever the pragmatist, had begun investigating the Arcturian alliance from a military standpoint. His sources had begun to notice something troubling, signals that didn't match the Arcturian profile, hidden transmissions, suspect behavior from certain Arcturian scientists embedded on Earth. Kane wasn't the type to rely on gut feelings, but something was off. The peace that seemed to blanket Earth's rapid rise was beginning to feel like a fragile illusion. It wasn't long before Kane's suspicions proved correct. One night, during an encrypted meeting with his trusted lieutenants, Kane received a transmission from a covert intelligence source within the Arcturian ranks. The message was brief but damning. The Arcturians had seeded a hidden backdoor in the quantum reactor technology Earth had been gifted, a dormant mechanism waiting for the right moment to activate. Kane immediately alerted President Jensen. The news hit her like a thunderclap. Betrayal, she muttered, barely audible. Not just betrayal, Kane replied, his voice hard. They've planned for us to be dependent on this technology, and now they have a failsafe. If they decide to trigger it, we'll be helpless. They could shut us down in an instant. Jensen felt a chill. She had trusted the Arcturians, believed their promises of shared knowledge, mutual benefit. But it was clear now that their involvement in humanity's rise had been calculated. They had used humanity's hunger for power and advancement as a means of gaining control. The very technology that had propelled Earth to greatness now held the seeds of its downfall. The question remained, why had they allowed this to happen? What did they truly want from humanity? Jensen gathered her closest, Advisors including General Kane and Dr. Ilara Roth, Earth's leading quantum physicist. Together they worked tirelessly, reverse engineering the Arcturian technology. What they discovered confirmed their worst fears. The backdoor was a fail-safe tied directly to a galactic network controlled by the Arcturians. It was a subtle form of dominance, one that ensured Earth could never be fully independent. But it was more than just a matter of technology. The backdoor also provided the Arcturians access to Earth's entire military network, the Titan fleet included. If they wished, they could turn Earth's greatest strength into a weapon against its own people. President Jensen's hands clenched into fists. She could feel the walls closing in on her, the weight of the galaxy's expectations bearing down upon her. Humanity's rise had been rapid and dramatic, but now their survival depended on how swiftly they could sever the threads that bound them to the Arcturians. "There's no going back," Jensen said, her voice steely. "We've been given a gift that comes with chains. We need to act fast before they trigger it. We cut them off. No more reliance on their technology, no more deals." Kane nodded. "And we need to prepare the fleet. If we can't trust them, we may have to fight our way out of this." But even as they worked to develop countermeasures, Jensen knew the clock was ticking. The Arcturians might have believed they controlled the future, but they had underestimated humanity's resilience. In the dark corners of the galaxy, Earth was no longer seen as a weak, fractured species. It was a force to be reckoned with. And now humanity would show the Arcturians that it would never be their pawn. This continuation introduces a new layer of intrigue, with the Arcturian betrayal coming to light and raising the stakes for Earth's leadership. It establishes a race against time, as humanity must outwit the Arcturians and prepare for a confrontation that could define the future of the galaxy. The tension builds as the political and technological web tightens around Earth, forcing President Jensen and her allies into a position of both power and vulnerability. With the discovery of the Arcturian backdoor, President Jensen and her team were plunged into a frantic race against time. The Arcturians, though silent, could be watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to seize control. Earth's leaders knew that their technological edge was now both a blessing and a curse, and they had no choice but to confront the threat head-on. In the command center of Earth's military, General Marcus Kane stood with his advisors, reviewing schematics for the Titan fleet's defenses. The Arcturian failsafe could cripple them at any moment, shut down their weapons systems, disable their shields, and render the fleet entirely vulnerable. But the problem wasn't just that the Arcturians had the power to trigger this catastrophe. It was that they had anticipated every move humanity might make. "They're waiting for us to react," Kane said, his voice grim. "If we go on the offensive now, they'll know we're onto them. If we don't, they'll make their move. Either way, we're walking into a trap." President Jensen had always prided herself on making decisions with confidence, but now, in the quiet of the war room, uncertainty hung thick in the air. Earth's military was the most advanced it had ever been, but it had never faced an adversary like the Arcturians, an ancient, calculating species with technology that was light years ahead of their own. And now, humanity had been cornered into a fight for survival. "We can't afford to wait for them to make the first move," Jensen said, her eyes steely with resolve. "We know what they're capable of. But we've always been underestimated. They think we're just a small player in this galaxy. Let's prove them wrong." Kane nodded, signaling for his team to begin preparing the fleet for deployment. But even as the plans were put into motion, a cold thought lingered at the back of their minds. Could they really fight against a civilization so advanced? Was it possible to outsmart the Arcturians? Jensen was certain of one thing: humanity couldn't afford to hesitate. If they did, they would fall under Arcturian control, their free will lost forever. In the days that followed, Earth's leaders made a bold decision. They would infiltrate the Arcturian network, sever the link to the back door, and disable the technology that had been implanted in their systems. It was risky. One wrong move and humanity's greatest military asset could turn against them. But it was their only option. Dr. Ilara Roth, the lead quantum physicist, was at the center of this mission. She worked tirelessly alongside Kane's best operatives to develop a virus, a countermeasure that could sever the link between Earth's technology and the Arcturian failsafe. It would be a long shot, but it was their only chance. The virus had to be uploaded directly into the Arcturian network, deep within the heart of their technological infrastructure. "We're not just breaking into their systems," Roth said, her voice steady despite the weight of the task. "We're cutting off the very thing that's keeping us enslaved. If we succeed, we'll be free. But if we fail, we'll be at their mercy." The team prepared for the mission with military precision. A small fleet of stealth ships equipped with cloaking technology and expert pilots would infiltrate the Arcturian command center on a distant moon. The goal was clear: get in, upload the virus, and get out before the Arcturians could detect them. The night of the operation, Earth's fleet moved into position. The cloaked ships, silent as shadows, moved through the cold expanse of space, their engines humming low and steady. As they approached the Arcturian moon, Jensen and Kane watched from the command center, their hearts pounding in unison. "They'll be expecting us," Kane muttered, his hand clenched around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "This won't be easy." Jensen's gaze never wavered from the screens in front of her. "They underestimate us. They always have." As the first of the stealth ships entered the Arcturian facility's perimeter, the mission seemed to go smoothly. No alarms, no signs of detection. Roth's virus had successfully bypassed the initial security layers, but as they neared the heart of the network, disaster struck. The Arcturian systems began to adapt. The network wasn't as dormant as they had believed. They had been expecting Earth's move all along. Deploying countermeasures, Roth's voice crackled over the comms. "We've triggered an alarm. Get ready for a fight." The cloaked ships were suddenly bombarded by concentrated energy pulses from Arcturian defense systems. The mission had become a race against time, as the ships were forced to break stealth and engage in open combat. The air was filled with the sound of discharges, the flashing lights of energy beams cutting through the vastness of space. Jensen's heart pounded as she watched the live feeds from the battlefield. This was humanity's last stand, and it was all or nothing. The virus had to reach its destination, or they would lose everything. "Do it now," she whispered under her breath, as Earth's forces engaged the full might of the Arcturian defense systems. This continuation ups the stakes for humanity as they launch a daring mission to sever the Arcturian control over their technology. It is a tense, action-packed moment, with the risk of failure imminent. Earth's leadership and military are tested like never before, and the looming question remains: can they outsmart the Arcturian behemoth before it's too late? The battle in deep space was a chaos of flashing lights and tearing explosions. The small fleet of cloaked ships had broken stealth, and now, surrounded by the full might of Arcturian defense systems, they fought desperately to deliver the virus into the heart of the Arcturian network. It was an operation on a razor's edge. One slip, one error, and Earth's fleets would be rendered useless, vulnerable to a crippling blow from the Arcturians. General Kane's face was set in a grim mask as he watched the battle unfold on his screens. "We need that virus to hit its mark," he muttered, his voice tight. "If Roth can't disable their systems, we're as good as dead." On the front lines, the ships launched evasive maneuvers, narrowly dodging pulse lasers and energy beams that streaked across the black expanse of space. Each hit from the Arcturian weapons sent shockwaves through the hulls of the Earth ships, but the crew was well trained. Every strike only spurred them to fight harder. Their mission was no longer about simply surviving. It was about securing a future for Earth, one that didn't rest in the hands of the Arcturians. Inside the lead ship, Aurora, Dr. Alara Roth was glued to her console, her fingers flying across the holographic keyboard as she worked furiously. The virus was in the system, but it was being blocked at every turn. The Arcturian defense AI was sophisticated, constantly adapting to their efforts, evolving faster than she could respond. Sweat beaded on Roth's forehead as she muttered to herself, her thoughts a blur of code and algorithms. "I can't... wait. There. The back door's open. Just a fraction," she whispered, eyes locked on the flashing data stream. She hit the final key, and in a moment of breathless anticipation, The system crackled and went dark. "Done," Roth said, collapsing. Back into her chair, her voice barely a whisper. The result was instantaneous. The Arcturian defense systems flickered and then shut down. The faint hum of the vast network slowly died, leaving only the cold silence of space. Roth's voice came, through the comms, sounding exhausted but triumphant. "It's done. The back door's sealed. They're cut off from us." Kane let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "You heard that, people? We're free." The battle was far from over, but the tide had turned. With the Arcturian defenses disabled, the fleet had the opening they needed. Humanity's ships began to retaliate with a fury that caught the Arcturians off guard. Earth's Titan fleet, now unburdened by the threat of instant disablement, unleashed a storm of firepower. The Arcturians, known for their patience and tactical brilliance, found themselves on the defensive for the first time. Their ships, though technologically superior, could no longer coordinate with the precision they once had. Every strike from Earth's forces found its mark, every salvo from the Titan fleet breaking through Arcturian defenses. Inside the command center of Earth's military, Jensen watched with a mix of exhaustion and rising hope. "Keep pushing," she ordered. "We can't stop until they're fully contained." The enemy ships faltered, unable to adapt fast enough to the relentless onslaught. The strategy that had once seemed impossible, taking down the unyielding Arcturian might, was now becoming a reality. Slowly but surely, the Arcturian fleet began to retreat. But the Arcturians were not known for surrendering easily. As Earth's forces pushed them back, a final, desperate gambit was made. A massive, once-hidden Arcturian warship, Eclipse, emerged from a previously cloaked position. It was larger than anything the Titan fleet had ever seen, and its weapons were capable of obliterating entire fleets in moments. "We've got a problem," Kane said, as the Eclipse emerged on the screens. The ship's power was immense, and the fleet had no way of matching its firepower directly, but it was also clear that the Arcturians were desperate. This was their last card. Jensen's eyes narrowed. "They've made their choice. We can't take that ship head-on," Kane said. "We don't have the firepower." But Jensen was already thinking ahead. "No, we don't fight it, we outsmart it." She turned to her tactical advisor. "Send a decoy squadron to draw it away, then hit it with everything we've got." The strategy was risky, but it was their only shot. The decoy squadron launched, engaging the Eclipse in a series of feints, drawing its fire and diverting its attention. The Arcturian flagship followed, taking the bait. Then, Earth's main fleet struck. A focused barrage of energy blasts hit the exposed weak points of the Eclipse, and after a tense few minutes, the warship's shields finally buckled. With a deafening explosion, the Eclipse was shattered into 1,000 pieces, its remnants floating lifelessly in the vacuum of space. Jensen let out a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity had not only survived the Arcturian assault, it had won. This continuation deepens the conflict, showing humanity's resilience and cleverness in overcoming the Arcturians' superiority. The battle is a turning point, where the tide turns in favor of Earth's forces, thanks to Dr. Roth's brilliant technical maneuver and General Kane's decisive military strategy. Despite the victory, the threat of the Eclipse reminds everyone that the war is far from over. Humanity's ingenuity, however, has proven to be its greatest strength. The remnants of the Eclipse drifted silently in the dark expanse of space, its once imposing silhouette shattered into pieces. The victory was decisive, but the silence that followed was heavy, filled with both relief and uncertainty. Earth's fleet had fought back the Arcturians, but the galaxy had just witnessed a shift in power, a shift in perception. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with. Back on Earth, President Sarah Jensen stood on the balcony of her office, looking out over the sprawling city below. The lights of the Capitol glowed in the dusk, symbolizing the hope that had been restored to the planet. But in her eyes there was no sense of triumph, only the weight of what had been lost and what lay ahead. "We've done it, Sarah," General Marcus Kane said, stepping into the room behind her. His voice was a mix of pride and weariness. "We've won." Jensen turned to face him. "We've won today, but we're not done yet. The Arcturians will regroup. This battle isn't over, not until we've secured our place in the galaxy." Kane nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. The galaxy had watched as Earth rose from a fledgling species to a formidable power. But the war with the Arcturians had not ended with the destruction of the eclipse. It was only the beginning. Humanity now stood at a crossroads. An unknown future stretched before them, full of opportunities, yes, but also immense challenges. "Do you think they'll try again?" Kane asked. "They won't stop," Jensen said, her voice steady but resolute. "But neither will we. They underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again." The Arcturians, despite their loss, were far from defeated. The destruction of their flagship was a massive blow, but it was also a wake-up call. Their arrogance had led them to believe that Earth would remain a small, insignificant player, a pawn in a galaxy of giants. Now, humanity had proven them wrong, and the repercussions would reverberate across the stars. But there were more forces at play than just the Arcturians. Earth had now entered the galactic spotlight, drawing the attention of both allies and enemies. Other alien species, some with histories of isolation, began to consider humanity's rapid ascent. The Alliance of the Seven Suns, a powerful coalition of galactic nations, had already sent emissaries to Earth, hoping to forge alliances, or in some cases, prepare for conflict. Jensen knew that humanity's path would be fraught with political, maneuvering, diplomacy, and more battles. But one thing had become clear. Earth was no longer just a player in the galactic game. They were a king on the board. That night, a message arrived from Ambassador Talax of the Arcturian High Council, transmitted directly to President Jensen's private communication line. It was short, devoid of formalities, but it spoke volumes. "You have proven yourselves, Earth. The galaxy watches. Let us hope you continue to play your hand wisely." The words carried a subtle threat, but also a grudging respect. Jensen leaned back in her chair, reading the message again. The Arcturians had lost a battle, but they had not given up on their ultimate goal, a new order with humanity potentially at its center. But this was no longer just about survival. It was about shaping the future on their own terms. She composed, herself, standing up from her desk and walking to the window. "This is just the beginning," she murmured, her gaze hardening as she stared into the vastness of space. "We will forge our own path, and we will make sure the galaxy knows humanity's name." General Kane entered the room, his eyes scanning the horizon alongside her. "You've got the support of the people, Sarah. We've shown them what we're capable of." "But it's more than that," Jensen replied. "This victory isn't just for us. It's for every species out there that has been silenced by the powerful, the ones who've been made to bow. We stand for freedom now. We stand for something greater." As the news of the defeat of the eclipse spread through the galaxy, Earth became the symbol of resistance. The unlikeliest of players had just broken the chains that the Arcturians had tried to wrap around them. Across distant star systems, rumors began to swirl about the human ascendant, a species that had risen from obscurity to claim its place at the top of the galactic order. And while the Arcturians seethed and plotted, Earth embraced its new role. Jensen knew the road ahead would be long, with far more difficult decisions ahead. Earth was not immune to the threats of galactic politics. But one thing had changed irrevocably. Humanity had proven that no one could dictate its future, not even the Arcturians. And as the stars sparkled in the distance, President Jensen made a vow to herself. The galaxy would remember the name of Earth, not as a relic of the past, but as the heart of a new era,